Good evening and welcome to the March Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. It's a beautiful day outside, isn't it? So, at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have the honor tonight, this evening, of having the Scouts from Troop 523 providing us with the opening ceremony. Mr. Vargas?
Audience attention, color guard attention. Audience, please rise. Color guard advance. Color guard halt. Color guard cross the colors. Color guard prepare to post the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're not in proper uniform, place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Color guard post the colors. Color guard honor your colors. 2. Color guard regroup. Color guard dismissed.
At this time, we'd like to recognize a young man from Troop 523 and the Scout leaders with certificates from Mr. and Mayor Tony Daddario. I had the pleasure of attending an Eagle Court of Honor on Sunday with Troop 523, and 5 young men earned their Eagle Scout rank that day. So it was a fantastic night for me. And so if you ever have an opportunity to get invited to one of those, please go to that event. It's remarkable what our young men and women are doing in our society, in our community in Corona. Troop 523 is led by Scoutmaster David Seaton. Been a Scoutmaster for a number of years now, so he's well seasoned. And they're led by the Senior Patrol Leader, Colin Bolanos. This time, again, thank you so much. Ms. Vargas, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Wentworth?
Present.
Commissioner Kinney?
Present.
Chair Munoz?
Present.
And Vice Chair Olson?
Present.
Thank you.
Meeting minutes were prepared and developed for the commission for the meeting last month. Commissioners, tonight we're seeking now an approval on last month's meeting minutes for February 14th. Do we have a motion?
I will motion to approve the minutes from last month.
I will second.
Ms. Vargas, can you please take a vote?
Commissioner Wentworth?
I vote yes.
Commissioner Kinney?
Yes vote.
Chair Munoz?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Olson?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Consent calendar. A developer impact fee fund balance bond repayment for January 2023. Do we have a motion?
I will motion to approve the consent calendar.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Ms. Vargas, will you please take a vote?
Commissioner Wentworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Kinney?
Yes.
Chair Munoz?
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Communication from the public. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment only on items within the Commission's jurisdiction that are listed or not listed on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the Parks and Recreation Commission are requested to identify themselves and state the matter on which they wish to comment. No action will be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. If you do speak, please observe a 3-minute limit for communications. Ms. Vargas, are there any speaker cards from the public?
No, Chair, there are no speaker cards.
Are there any written comments from the public?
No, Chair, there are no written comments.
All right. Moving on, youth update. Report by Teen Advisory Council.
We do not have any members of the Teen Advisory Council.
I look forward to that every month. Darn it. Next month. Are there any speaker cards, Ms. Vargas, from the public?
No, Chair, no speaker cards.
Ms. Vargas, are there any written comments from the public?
No written comments, Chair.
Commissioner Wentworth, although we haven't heard anything, do you have any comments from previous engagements? No? Okay. Commissioner Kinney? Vice Chair Olson?
I do not.
Okay. And neither do I. But again, I missed the opportunity to hear their thoughts. Director's report by Dr. Ann Turner.
Well, good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. It's so nice to be here with you again. I realize that our last meeting was on Valentine's Day, and we got to sit here very late together on Valentine's Day. I guess that's a good sign that we all care about each other, so belated Valentine's Day. Tonight, we have a short director's report, but I do want to go over a couple of items with you. First of all, we did bring the City Park Master Plan update. So this was an update that was provided to the Committee of the Whole on where we are in the city master planning process. We got some really good feedback. We heard a lot of different things, both from the public and from the council. And you will see in our presentation to you tonight, where we are seeking your feedback, that we have some responses to some of that feedback, as well as just some understanding about exactly the master planning process is versus the design process. So I think we weren't very clear, or as clear as we might have been, at the Committee on the Whole. So I think we're going to make that distinction for you here tonight, and I think that'll be really interesting. So I look forward to that presentation. Just as always, want to let the commission know what's coming up. We are going to be awarding a contract to LR Landscaping. That'll be for on-call landscaping services. That's something that we have regularly. That is to supplement our contracts throughout our LMDs and our parks. That's our person who can come and fill that gap when we need something done right away. So we're very excited about getting that contract through at the council meeting on Wednesday night, hopefully. And then just for your information, because it is part of the Community Services Department, while it's not in the purview of the commission, we are going to bring the fuel source technology for the city of Corona for our transit system. It's the zero emission bus plan. So that will also be on the council agenda for tomorrow night. So a riveting meeting. Come and join us. Got a lot of library information for you this month, and that's always exciting. So Danielle is our new library manager. She's been here now almost a month. It's so exciting. We are thrilled to have her. This is our library events calendar, and we are really excited. If you're ever looking for ways to engage, we are beginning the In and Out cover-to-cover challenge over at the library. And I know that we have a small group of folks who are really involved in our fiction book club, and that fiction book club is meeting. They are meeting downstairs in the library, and I know everyone is excited to have that going back. We had a little hiccup where I think there was a week or so where they weren't there, but they meet at 10:30 a.m., and they'll be meeting on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. at the library boardroom downstairs. So if you need a book club, want to join a book club, that's a great little book club, and if you can make it at 10:30, that's terrific. We had Ladders and Linguini, and boy, that was a night. It was a lot of fun. If you weren't able to make it, I saw a lot of you there. I think we all got our picture taken together. It's actually a really good picture. My hair looks kind of crazy, but other than that, it looks great. So it was a wonderful event. The friends were very happy with it. It was sold out, quite successful, and everyone had a wonderful time. And then, just so that you know, again, outside of the commission's purview, in the purview of the library trustees, but I think always important to share that we did have an all-staff day. It was actually Danielle's very first day of work, which was terrific. So very rarely do we get all of the library staff in one place at one time because we have so many part-time staff. And this was an all-day training. They had a couple of breakout sessions. They had activities, how to use a fire extinguisher, all kinds of things going on there. And so we were very excited that Danielle could do that and our staff could do that. We talked a little bit about some of the capital improvement projects that we're going to be doing at the library. So the library is vibrant, exciting, and lots of things we will be sharing with you about what's happening at the library moving forward. Treetacular is Saturday. It's March Mulch Madness. Say that 15 times fast. It's going to be exciting. If you don't have mulch, come and get some mulch. We'll have our drive-through mulch, so we can put that right in the back of your truck or in the back of your wagon, whatever you want to have with you. We're going to be doing tree planting, but this year it's going to be really spectacular. It's going to look like a proper sort of Arbor Day. The mayor is going to be there. He's going to sign the Arbor Day proclamation. We'll have face painting, we'll have booths, we'll have little saplings that you can take home and plant. It's going to be beautiful. It's at Citrus Park, so come and join us on Saturday. We'll start at 9 a.m., we'll go till about noon, and there's lots of fun for everyone. And it's a lovely time to create community together in one of our beautiful parks and really enjoy and see what shade and trees and all of that can do for us. So this is kind of our combination of Arbor Day celebration and Earth Day, and generally being out and appreciating our parks and what they do for our community. And then we have some AARP tax help, and so I'm going to turn it over to Jason to talk with us a little bit about, oh, Moses was supposed to tell you about Treetacular. Sorry, Moses. Jason's going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing at the Senior Center with our AARP tax aid.
Yes, thank you. And this month I did want to highlight our senior program. It is absolutely a treasure trove of resources. It's such a vibrant space, and it's constantly being reactivated and reimagined with new resources and happenings. But this month in particular, I just that is our AARP tax aid program. So we actually work with a group of trained volunteers who can help senior citizens file their taxes. So taxes can be a little intimidating. You know, you have to have money and resources sometimes to, go to a professional filer. But if you need assistance, we're there for you. And these individuals will sit down. We have a good checklist that kind of breaks down what you need to bring to your appointment. And we'll help you through it. And this service is actually not exclusive to seniors. So families, individuals, maybe it's your first time having a job and you need a little bit of help. This team is here for you. We anticipate that we're going to be filing 400 documents this season. So absolute amazing resource. I just want to say hats off to the volunteers who make this possible. And please tell a friend if they need assistance. Thank you.
And probably the shortest director's report I've ever given. So it concludes my director's report. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Ms. Vargas, are there any speaker cards from the public?
No, Chair, there are no speaker cards.
Are there any written comments from the public?
No written comments, Chair.
Commissioner Wentworth.
Thank you. Ladders and Linguini was wonderful. We all had a great time, so it's always fun to support the library. I want to say I'm looking forward to the Treetacular Park takeover. I will be there. Memories were coming out of my phone from last year when we were there, and Amy and I were planting trees. So it's a great event. I hope that the community really gets involved and enjoys that, and we're not rained out, so hopefully that'll be fine. I did have one question. This is not on your report, but I'm hoping that you can come back to the next meeting with an update on the Mangular Park tennis courts, as they are currently locked and not in use, and I've had some questions as to when those would be repaired and usable. Thank you.
Be happy to bring that back to you.
Commissioner Kinney.
Thank you for the presentation. I have one quick question on the tax filing assistance. Is that just to show up, first come, first serve, or do they need to make an appointment? And if so, how would they do that?
So we'd actually take this on a first come, first serve basis, but you can swing by the senior center or call ahead at any time. We have a little slip of paper that kind of breaks down, what documents you would want to bring with you. They're pretty fast and efficient. Anyone who really needs aid immediately, they always try to make that a priority. But it moves pretty quickly. It's really amazing what the preparers do, and they have their own tax software that they use to kind of automize and streamline things. Again, tremendous resource.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the brief report. I also had a wonderful time at Ladders and Linguini. It was a good time as always. Looking forward to Treetacular. Hopefully the ground will be nice and soft with all this rain. Looking forward to that. Should be there about 10 o'clock, shuffling some other stuff in the morning. I did have a question about the landscaping on call, just a matter of curiosity. What kind of scenarios would you use that for?
Sure. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Cortez to share with you a little bit about what our on-call landscaping does.
So they do everything that would be outside of the contract of our normal maintenance contractors. So that could be, requests for some additional planting, irrigation repairs that might be under like a driveway or a street crossing. They do a lot of our homeless encampment cleanups. They do weed abatement along our fuel modification areas that may not be part of an LMD or CFD. So they do all those areas, like Ann mentioned, that are, not within the maintenance contracted gap.
And have we had one before and we're renewing it, or is this a new?
We did have one. Their contract expired. We exhausted all our terms, so we went out to bid and are now awarding again.
Thank you.
Lastly, a couple things. The monthly schedule is a wow. It's full. Years ago, we had a comment from a friend of ours, well, a neighbor of ours, when we first moved to Corona, and he said, there's nothing to do in Corona. And when you look at the calendar, it's filled to the brim with exciting things to do, whether you're 5 years old or 500 years old like me. It's just you have a good time doing things. And then the CIP in the library, I can't wait to see what happens there. I mean, you go there, it's exciting because back in the old days, you walk in the library, it was just so quiet, and non-bustling. And you go to the books, and they all smelled really old back then. But today, you go there, and it's exciting because it's just the teenagers go there to their room, and they're having fun doing reading and writing, all that fun stuff. It's exciting to be a kid again, I'm sure. To go back in time would be nice. And then the drive-through mulch on March 18th. Can't wait to get mulched up on that. Spectacular. And then the AARP, that's my age, so I might be there myself, so. But I'd like to ask a question too, and this is off the record too, off this record here, but maybe next month or month after next, I'd like to see maybe some feedback and a plant palettes for what's going on in the medians and parkways, and what the plan of attack is for maintaining those parkways, and see what we can do. And we're doing some things in different cities, and I just want to be enlightened on what I could do better as a landscape architect.
Chair Munoz, we are in the process right now through the city manager's office and with the help of Mr. Cortez, working on our LMD. There'll be a full presentation on the LMDs at our spring financial workshop. So our spring financial workshop is coming up in April. I'll be happy to make sure that Ms. Vargas gets the date out to all of you, but there'll be a full discussion there on our LMDs. I'm not sure that we will be discussing specific plant palettes, but I think we have a few plant palettes that go in that presentation. So I'd encourage you to come and join us at the Spring Financial Workshop.
Great, thank you. One of the key things I look at really when I drive around town from work or even on weekends is trees and how they're planted in parkways. And the parkway might be 5 feet wide, and does the space accommodate the tree of whatever species it may be? I'm just kind of concerned about that and looking forward to seeing that presentation. Thank you.
Chair Munoz, we did receive 2 speaker cards, one for communications from the public and one for the director's report.
I just had a question. I was wondering if Corona is planning to renew the contract of Major League Softball for adult softball. I've called multiple times. I haven't got any responses, and I was just curious if you guys are planning to re-sign that contract to get softball back in Corona, or?
I'm going to ask Mr. Last to go ahead and take that question.
Yes, I'd be happy to answer that. So the city of Corona is actually operating its own independent adult softball league at this point. We are amidst our current season. However, we did get rained out this week, unfortunately. I do have the information pending for our summer league, and I'd be happy to provide that with you on the side.
That's the thing, there's like one team, and I know Dominic Retta, I think he works here, he was on my team. And he's the one who told me he canceled the softball thing with MLS because he thought he could run it itself. And obviously it hasn't ran by itself at all. There's like no teams to even get on. And they don't have it at Promenade Park or any of the parks they had it at. So I'm just wondering if, so the plan is just Corona to run it only with that one team?
We have several leagues, actually. So we practice at Promenade and Eagle Glen. I'd say it's about a dozen or so right now, but I'd be happy to get you more information on who's playing. We also have pickup options too, if you'd like to join a team.
Okay. I mean, I've looked and there's no way to get on the website from the teams of that.
Okay, I can help you with that.
Okay. So there's no plan to do with the MLS, re-signing the contract with them and have it at least like it used to be, where there were so many teams, there were tons of teams. different leagues, none of that? That's not planned?
Not at this time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it. That sucks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Joe.
Good afternoon. I heard one of my favorite words up there was fire modification zone, and I was curious if our apparently newly adopted area up in Craft Ranch that has a FMZ that goes all the way up to the top, that we've decided that we own the culverts, and I'm wondering if the LMD or if the city has now taken over the maintenance of the upslope area from our new culverts. Is that in the budgets, or is that planned, or is that, I don't know if you knew about that, but there was a private area that voted to not join the LMD because the maintenance costs were too high. And then when they didn't maintain the upslope area, it all washed down and plugged their culverts, and then we decided that we owned the culverts now. So we went up and cleaned them out. And I'm curious if the program now includes Craft Ranch, or, you know, they're not in an LMD and they don't pay LMD fees like the rest of Sierra del Oro. But, you know, I'm just curious how that's being addressed at this point. Thank you.
I don't know, but I don't know, Mr. Cortez, if you can get back to Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, so we're not doing the, any weed abatement in the Craft Ranch area. That's all HOA. The only areas that we'd be doing would be like along Zone 10, and then over off like Big Springs and Corydon areas that back up to like the flood control, Santa Ana River areas. And that's the only areas that we do right now. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to hear from the best people in the world about the City Park Master Plan update.
All right, it's me again. Good evening. Thank you, Commission. We actually want to just come back and bring you an update. As Ann mentioned, we did bring this to Committee of the Whole a couple weeks ago, and we just wanted to come back and provide an update on kind of how that meeting came about, and then provide you guys an update of where we are, some timelines, and kind of shed some light on what the master planning process involves, and what our next steps are going forward. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that, and I'll get into some of the details in a minute. I'm also joined by Justin Tucker here, who's going to go over some of the survey data results, because we did a lot of outreach. So today's ask is that the Parks and Recreation Commission receive and file the Corona City Park Master Plan update. Gotta fast forward here. There we go. So an overview of today's presentation is going to include what is the master planning process, history of the park and the project, community engagement, community outreach, some of the community desires that we heard, how we ranked the community desires and sorted through all those, what we learned from the Committee of the Whole meeting that we went to, as well as a project timeline, and then we'll also obviously be available for questions at the end to try and answer any questions that we may not have addressed in this presentation. So kind of just a little bit of background on the park. This is our oldest park in town. Has a ton of rich history. It's been widely used for several events throughout the town's history. I can remember quite a few events going over there, City Park, the Cinco de Mayo event, the parades used to end there at the park. So the parks have been heavily utilized over the years, and we just want to bring it back to that history where everybody comes to, where it's a destination. There's been 4 generations, kind of like I was mentioning. So just a lot of history there, and we really want to try and like keep that history. As you can see, that's actually a water treatment plant that's at the park, but we've mimicked it to look like the old city municipal plunge. So we really want to just try and keep that history so the park still feels and looks like it did years ago. So yeah, it's a diamond in the rough. In 2009, 2010, we did do some initial renderings and kind of started the process of maybe redoing the park. Unfortunately, at that time, we had some financial constraints and couldn't move forward, so the project was put on hold until now, and now we're moving forward with doing a master plan to see where that can lead us to. So some of the components of a master plan, I'll go through these here, and really just want to really kind of stress the master planning process isn't the design, so we're not designing the park right now. Really what we're trying to do is just kind of look at the massing of the park, so we just want to kind of really know what exactly is our park going to include. You know, the park will obviously have some very key anchor points that will make it, probably some of the more predominant features of the park. So we knew an aquatic center, potentially a couple of community buildings that could be used for like senior activities, some library activities. You could host a quinceanera there or other kind of parties. So we really wanted to have a very functional space that would be able to be utilized outside of some of our other buildings. And the other thing is that, although the park will have these key anchor points, it'll still have all the same feel and features of a regular park. So you're still gonna have those walking paths, you're gonna have the benches, you're gonna have the pergolas, the playground. So you're just gonna have these key anchor points. And the analogy I was kind of mentioning to Ann is like, what we wanted to know is like, where do you want your house? Like, really that was kind of the big thing, is where do we want the houses? And then after that, once we get into design and our next steps, then we can start looking at the finite details of what do those houses look like? What are those buildings gonna look like? What kind of aquatic center, do we really want it to have? Like we want to know the footprint and what it's gonna look like. And then from there, we can get into the details of what it's gonna be utilized for, and working with our stakeholders and, Corona Norco Unified School District and the YMCA who programs our aquatics, and really make sure that we hear from them. So that way, this is a functional. We don't want to build something and not have it functional. We want it to be very purposeful and useful and available for all the community use. So to kind of get into some of the components that are listed here in the master planning, so it's documents, it's it's policies, it's looking at what we've done historically, what gaps might be there. Are we missing an area that we're not able to program because maybe our existing pool didn't meet those needs of the community? So trying to really see where those gaps were. It's looking at planning, a ton of data collection. We really wanted this to be a community-driven process, so we did a ton of surveys. We did door knocking, and I'll kind of get into some of that in a minute. We assessed all the needs and the growth of the community. I mean, the park was obviously the oldest park. Now, the city's grown exponentially, but since then, so how do we still keep that history and have the park still have the same feel, but be able to accommodate the size of the city now? Collaboration with all our stakeholders. Drafting some key conceptual plans. And again, they're very conceptual, high-level plans just to kind of see what the campus could look like and how those pieces would fit into the puzzle, and just provide some overall high-level estimated timelines. And the process for all this was initially just us going out and getting that community engagement. So getting out there, talking to folks, holding some events in the park, hearing from them, engaging with them, sending out surveys, getting the survey results back, doing email blasts, social media stuff, and we identified all of our options. We prepared a plan and went forward from there once we saw that, and then that's what we kind of brought to the committee of the whole, was that overall kind of conceptual map that would kind of laid out what the campus could potentially, be utilized for. So the community engagement, that was really the fun part. That was really fun to get out there and hear from the folks around the park. So we went and I can't say we. Caroline and her team went out. I helped some. I went to the pop-up event. I worked with Justin. We did a ton of survey data stuff. We just really, kind of saturated the community with surveys, and really just wanted to engage with them and hear, like, do you use the park? What would you use the park for? How often do you visit the park? And just really, got all their data and was able to really kind of outline what those key anchor points would be. And this is just some more of what we did. There was a video that went out with me in it, talking about how the park used to feel when I was a kid, and it was really fun. That's how I remember it, and that's kind of what we want to bring it back to. So, and we did the door hangers. So just, again, a really great job by the outreach team. We really saturated it, got that community voice, tied that with our stakeholders. And now the next piece is, obviously, we want to bring this to you guys. And as we move through this process over the next several months before we deliver the plan, all of your guys' feedback and suggestions and information will be super helpful and very key to what we bring back to the council again. So all of your suggestions and ideas will definitely be documented and be presented in our next updates to our city council. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin to go over the data results, and then I'll be back at the end.
Commissioners, I'm so excited to talk to you. We have done some of the most innovative, technologically innovative ways of surveying our residents that I've ever done, and I think you're going to be really excited to hear how we did it. So most of the time when you do a survey, you post it somewhere and people come in, and you don't know where they're at, and you don't know very much about them. We have to rely on them. to tell us what they want to tell us about themselves. For City Park, because this is so important that we get this right, and then we get this park designed in a way that is most relevant to the people who are closest to the park, we drew 3 concentric circles around the city park and used utility billing data to send each one of those people emails to invite them to participate in the survey. So we know where those respondents lived, and we can plot them according to where they live on the map, and we can plot their preferences. And we'll see a video of that in just a second. But in all, we solicited 15,612 people. We sent those emails at least 3 times to all of those people. And in that, the people who live closest to that park, within 1 mile radius, we sent 2,363 emails, and 150 of those people participated. Now, 150 doesn't sound like very many, but if 150 people showed up in this room who all lived within a mile of the park, you'd pay attention. And so it's really, really important to know that even though these numbers are small, they represent a very large portion of the population, and we can track their responses back to where they live. Now, we sent those emails, but then we also opened up the survey for everybody else. We had 1,000 of those participants where we don't know where they live. So in each one of these columns, we've rank ordered the preferences of the people based on where they live. Now, most of those preferences are really similar across the top. Maybe the top 5 or 6 are all ranked the exact same. And then we go down that list based on the preferences of the people closest to the park. So those are sorted in order of the preferences of the people closest to the park. And if you wanted to compare them across groups, that provides a lot of insight. But don't need to memorize this. We'll come back to it in just a second. This is a little video that we prepared for the Qualtrics conference, which is a cutting-edge survey conference. It's about consumer and experience management. And our IT team presented this, and it wowed a lot of people because not very many, in fact, no cities are doing this. So what you're going to see is you're going to see first a layer of gray, which are the residents who participated in the survey. And then across the top, you'll see what item that they wanted and where they lived. So you can pay attention close to where City Park is on the map and look at where those respondents cluster. Across the first set, you won't see very many, but as we start getting a little bit lower down the preference list, you'll see that some of their preferences shift to the south part of the city. So gotta get Roby to play that for us. We might want to watch it twice because I think it's pretty cool. If you want to watch it again, we can play it again. And if that's okay, we're okay with that too. But one of the ideas is that if you can show where people have preferences and we can map them, we can better understand what should be in each of the parks. And I'm sorry about tennis, but I play tennis, and so I had to choose that yellow color for the balls. Makes it hard to see though. All right, thank you. So we're going to go back really quickly. We're going to rank these again the same way. And the way that we sort of landed the spaceship, as our consultant said, is to try and go through and say, how can we put these amenities in the park based on the way that the representative sample of those individuals closest to the park would have had them expressed in ranked order. So here we go. City Park is not like Skyline. In fact, it's probably a little bit more like Lincoln Park. And I visit Lincoln Park pretty routinely. And when people want walking trails, Lincoln Park trails are pretty great. You can walk around them. There's some activities around the core, but it energizes the space. And Lincoln Park is linear, but we can do something really similar to that in City Park, where we have trails where lots of people can access them and include an area that, like a quarter-mile walking path that would essentially activate the entire space. So it would be the hub around which we can build a lot of activities. Now, they asked for playgrounds. That was the number 2 preference. The playgrounds at the site are, one of them is centrally located and the other is in the southeast corner, which is very proximate to 6th Street. And we think, with some discussions with the consultants, that centralizing that playground and making it amazing or iconic, that would be safe near that hub, would be a good place to locate that. So playgrounds were number 2. It'd be nearby other facilities, which you'll see in a second. People asked for picnic shelters as the 3rd thing. Picnic shelters end up being a really great amenity if they're used appropriately, and if they're not, then they end up attracting some problems. And some of those problems we see persistent at City Park. And one way to make that better is to create little spaces around the park where people could have picnics. And so we're sort of punting on picnic shelters for a little bit because there are a lot of picnic shelters throughout the city. So we're going to go down to a botanical garden. And when you start looking at the size of a regular botanical garden, they're very large and they don't get visited frequently. And so what we can do is we can incorporate all the botanical elements around the trails and create a really immersive experience for the people who visit. And we can add placards or other things to identify the beautiful things that are already at City Park, and then create opportunity or create experiences for those people who visit along those trails. Now, number 5 ranked was a performance space. And we have a really great centerpiece around that trail. We call it a community canvas, and it can be painted for all sorts of things. We could have events there. I think the size that we put was 150,000 square feet, which is very, very large. But the performance space could be around that trail. We could park food trucks. We could have a festival in that space. We could also add a stage at one end and have community concerts there, where we can fill up that whole space with people in the same way that we have our summer concert series, but have it in a much more active environment. So that space becomes much more flexible in the middle, in that community canvas. Number 6 was there was a desire for a community center. And we have buildings in the city, but we haven't designed a purpose-built community center. And so this would be a great opportunity to make sure that we have an active facility in this area that would bring activity there where we could program it and have it designed to suit our needs, not just for now, but into the future. And so we place a community center near the playground to keep it active, and then close to the community canvas, so as people are walking around, they can come in and interact there. We have some existing parking. Now, I know there was some concern about parking, and once again, this is not design, but we'll ensure that wherever that community center is placed has adequate parking. Parking exists in that location, but we would expand that to make sure it was large enough. Number 7 on that list was a courtyard or a plaza with a splash pad. Now, I used to skate when I was younger. My bones are a little too brittle now. But I used to love skating at plazas because they're long and they're beautiful, and you have lots of opportunities to hit speed and jump over things. And so what we decided, or thought through with the consultants, not decided, what we're proposing is to have 2 different plazas, one on the southeast edge and one on the northwest central part, that they make great vistas into the park. You can see them, they're beautiful. But if you put a plaza at the southeast corner, it removes an amenity from the park, which is the skate park. And one thing that we could do is kill 2 birds with a stone and just make that a skate plaza. And redesign the skate environment so it's not a place where people could hide, but make it a big, beautiful, wide open plaza where people can skate. And then keep on the northwest side, have a plaza that would build a bridge between the community canvas and parking, which we'll see in just a second. But there would be spaces that would be wide open where people could congregate and interact and have a plaza-like experience. Now, the splash pad the splash pad gains some efficiencies by coming here, which we'll talk about in a second. But we locate the splash pad near the playground and we add parking. So by adding parking on the north of the splash pad and south of the splash pad, we have easy access to that amenity. And we can build a bridge between the playground into a wetter environment. And this would be a big splash pad. I think it's like 10,000 square feet. This would be a gigantic splash pad. Number 9 on the list was an aquatic center, and because of the condition of the current aquatic center, it probably needs to be replaced. And we believe that there's sufficient amount of programming that could take place there, and for community partners, that would be a great amenity. And it would it's an important part of the history of the park. And we looked at a bunch of different places where we could land the aquatics facility, but determined that, or at least conceptually, we think that the aquatics facility would be better in its current location. If we place the aquatic center there would still be parking on the west and on the north and on the south. So in that hub of activity on the west end of the park, you have a continuum that comes from Grand all the way into the community campus, which is high-intensity activity in aquatics, to a wet environment and splash pad, to a playground, into the community campus. And that's a little continuum. But by positioning the splash pad next to the aquatic center, we actually gain a lot of efficiencies because we can house the pump equipment for both of them in the same place, instead of having to have 2 purpose-built facilities with pumps. All right. And then number 10 was a multi-use sports field. And the cool thing is that if we build the community canvas the right size, we can just make it big enough to paint it for soccer or for some other big field. So the canvas, once again, becomes the central hub in the park, and we just designed that space big enough that we could use it for a big sporting event where we could draw people in. Now, number 11 was basketball courts. Interestingly, we have some good-looking basketball courts there that we could keep and retain. That would activate the northeast edge along Quarry, and they're well used. So we keep those in the same sort of space, and they can be used for other things. But basketball is a great amenity to have there. Lower down the list was a senior center or teen center. Once again, it would benefit the city to have a purpose-built building to host a senior center or a teen center. And on our conceptual designs, we call these just community centers. And those would take place, the decisions about these would take place in the design phase. But we have growth in expanding our senior programs. And based on some of the things that we've heard, having a combined center that could be used for seniors in the morning, or teens in the afternoon, or a space where you have intergenerational mixing is actually really good for the community. In some of my work prior to coming to the city, you see significant benefits for seniors to have a purpose-built space for them, where they can have congregate meals, where they can interact with each other, and then reduce social isolation and bridge the intergenerational divide. Now, if you post that community center on the eastern edge of the park, you have activity that's programmed at all of the areas of the park. And because of that, you can reduce significant problems. If we program activities in the Eastern Community Center and we program activities along the Southern or Southwestern Community Center, that entire space becomes active, and it can mitigate some of the problems that we currently face at City Park. So once again, having a community center on the eastern edge would allow access to that quarter-mile loop around the community canvas, be able to build a bridge, and we think that that would be a big hub of activity. So the last couple of items on that list of preferences were baseball, tennis, a skate park, and pickleball. We've knocked out skate park by creating a skate plaza at the southeast corner, a bigger, better designed skate park. Baseball is a field this big would eat up a very large proportion of the park. Tennis we have in other locations, and then pickleball, once again, I think part of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan will be able to identify really good locations for that. But as we've gone down the list, we've tried to identify the highest priority highest priorities of the residents. And so we have this draft bubble diagram that we've been working around, and where we would land these buildings. And then this is what you likely saw at the Committee of the Whole, which is a sort of preliminary conceptual plan that we brought to the City Council and that Committee of the Whole for some guidance about sizes and some other choices that they had to make. So once again, returning to this slide, as we've gone down, we've hit the vast majority of all the community desires across the biggest preferences, all the way down to Courtyard and Plaza with a splash pad, even the Aquatic Center. Those are widely shared among the community as what are desired in that space. The other things we've tried to knock out. So you'll see checks and X's as we've gone through and tried to locate these on City Park. And I'm going to turn that time back over to Moses.
Thank you, Justin. So just kind of wrap up this presentation and kind of go over a few things. Again, we really just want to emphasize that we want to work together with all our partners. So that including, the school district, the YMCA, our Parks Commission, all of our key stakeholders, and obviously our community. They're our number one drivers of our data. So that really is going to be the data driver for the campus. And kind of what we learned from the Committee of the Whole presentation that we took. So what we learned was that we do need to meet with a couple additional stakeholders on a couple of our items there to make sure that we got all their data and information. We need to revisit some of our amenities and see how all those play into the campus and where they fit. And we also want to, just like Justin mentioned, just because they made it on the survey, if they don't fit in this campus, we also want to, we have 3 master plans coming this summer, so we have some really exciting things coming out. So some of those things will be addressed in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We have all of the rest of our parks that some are very underdeveloped and don't have amenities in them. So that might be some really great areas, so that way we do have like amenities in each quadrant of the city. That's something that we've really been driving to our Parks and Recreation Master Plan consultants that are doing our general Parks and Recreation Master Plan, is that, yes, this will be kind of one of our downtown key parks, but all the rest of our parks throughout the city, we want them to all have like amenities. We really want people to be able to, if you live in like one quadrant, you should be able to have some kind of water feature and some kind of maybe pump track, skate park, whatever. You should all have some use to some fields. So we just really want that to be very equitable and fair across the whole board. So these are all things that we really just, we took in from the feedback we got from the Committee of the Whole, and that we're really going to try and ensure that we tie into this master plan. This will be the first master plan delivered. This one is scheduled to be delivered in June, and then we go into our other ones after that. Which kind of leads me into my project timeline. So right now, we've already done our analysis. We've gone through and inventoried the park. We did all our inventory and data collection. We inventoried our assets, including the trees. There's a lot of historic oak trees there that we're going to keep in place or work around. We've done a ton of community outreach. We've gotten that data. Justin kind of went over all that survey results. Now we're into kind of wrapping up the final phases of the master plan, which again is very high level, and it's just kind of looking at the overall function of the park and ensuring that whatever does go into there, that it's been vetted and that we've talked about it, we've discussed it, and that we've, based on all the information and data we got, that it'll be a fully functional and very purposefully built park that will be able to be utilized to its full potential for programming. And with that wraps up our presentation, and Justin and I are available for any questions if you have any.
Well, thank you, Justin and Mr. Cortez, for a very solid presentation. Ms. Vargas, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Yes, Chair, we do have 1 speaker card.
Thank you.
Good evening, good afternoon. It's Joe Morgan, 2063 Ren. I didn't hear anything about the trees at Committee of the Whole, and I kind of breathed a sigh of relief that's part of the planning, and you're planning to retain all of those, because that's one of the like the coolest part of it. That's we've spent the last 50 years knocking down everything old in this city, and we have this one iconic park filled with really iconic trees that's been here since the beginning, and so they really need to be part of the plan. When I hear the term campus applied to City Park, it sends shivers in my spine. I don't like that. I work on a campus. I love it on the campus, but the public isn't welcome on the campus. So people are supposed to be welcome at a park. I have a park next to me at Santana, and I don't particularly feel welcome at that park because it's basically a rental facility. Every time I want to go do something there, somebody else is, there's a programmed thing in there that you got to sign up for. You can't do this, you can't do that. Everything's kind of blocked off. I really worry about making a campus that's filled with scheduled activities and things that you have to sign up for. You gotta sign up online in order to go into this building. And it seems like that's not a park. And so I think, while I understand the need for some of these items, I think it's also important to keep it as a park and not a campus. I do like the idea of opening up the skate park. I can tell you, look, I got a BMX bike, and I want to go ride at the park that's next to my house, and I can't, because it's like, nope, sorry, nope, skateboards, that's it, skateboards. So the idea of having it be open, have a plaza that's open to people with wheels, skateboard, scooters, BMX bike, that you can just find a little hump that you can just go goof around and ride up and down on. Some little thing that you could just play around on. It's open to more people. And I think that should be the theme, is to have it open to as many people. The other thing it kind of struck me at committee of the whole is it seemed that it was not as thoughtful as most of the things that have gone on in the last few years are. I didn't hear much discussion about, well, what do we have here and how much are they being used? And then how does that play into this plan? So to say, well, we need a senior center, well, honestly, the Circle City Center is a complete waste of space. Every time I go in there where there's no programmed thing in there, it's practically a ghost town. And that would have made a perfect senior center. You could do a multi-generational rec center, community center. You could do that there. Honestly, that thing was built on spec for the chamber, and the chamber looked at it and goes, as soon as they tore down the not open sign, they're like, that's not going to work for us. And it's never been used for the thing that was originally designed for, which was hosting chamber activities. They still go to Ontario to go do their stuff. So, it seems like that's a perfect place to do a gut and rebuild, So, it seems like I don't see much coordination as far as what facilities do we need, which places are impacted, which places are getting heavily used, and then if we have to put some kind of programmed buildings in and put some other things that you got for at the park. So it would be, I didn't really hear much of that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. Ms. Vargas, are there any written comments from the public?
No, Chair, there are no written comments.
All right. This time, Commissioner Wentworth.
Well, I want to thank you for that presentation, and you're right, the explanation with the data was very cool. It was very nice to see. I want to say, as far as outreach goes as well, to commend the staff, Moses, your staff, and Justin, and everything that you guys did, and walking around and going door to door. I talked to some of the employees. I was at some of these outreach events, and it was really great to see that. That was a huge concern of mine, and I think of this commission. We have not had successful outreach in the past for this park. I think it's been extremely limited. And so the results that came back to the commission, in my opinion, did not really reflect the community needs and desires. And I truly feel confident that this is what happened with this plan, and you all were able to do that and bring that back to us. So I think that's a huge accomplishment, and I really appreciate the hard work that went into that. And don't think that it doesn't go unrecognized, because it does, because that was something that I was very keen to look at when we went through this last time with all previous people up here and a previous director. What's coming through today is completely different and valid. And so that should be commended and it should be noted. So that's the first thing that I want to add to this. And then as we move along, I can see that you take all those needs and you place them into one place and are trying to give this park a vision. And I'm not sure that the vision is really being communicated to its fullest extent here. I think that what you're really looking at is taking an extremely large park nearly in the center of an urban area city and saying to the council and the community that our vision is to to take this and really make it a centerpiece, a piece for events and cultural events, and that we want to take back the spread out nature of our park system and almost centralize it and place that centrally in the city. So with that communication of a vision, you move forward into what community center buildings actually mean. And I think in the council of the whole, this didn't get, I don't think this got explained to the extent that it needed to get explained. And I think that I'm hoping that moving forward, we can do a better job at visioning that interplay between what a community center is, what it does, how many people it touches, the children, the preschoolers, the school-age children, the teenagers, and the adults, and then the senior center. The interplay between the ability to have all of that going on in proper space, corresponding with a splash pad and an aquatic center and a walking space is actually huge. And it kind of takes a full vision and takes this idea and says to the council, we want to make this huge. We're not willing to go in halfway. We're willing to go in all the way. And I think that that's what you were trying to express at Council of the Whole and get the council to buy into was really take a community centerpiece and place it here in this location. And with that, I mean, that has my support. I mean, irrespective of the individual amenities in this park, which we're not really here to debate as much. I have a couple of issues, I think, that need to be addressed. I'm not confident with the parking situation. I think that more work needs to be done there. I think, again, with like the skate park, I will echo that again. Because we had community members come down here and we have constant contact with members that ride bikes, ride scooters, and skateboard, there's a difference to what you use those things to. And my concern is, you know, an all-wheel plaza is a no-wheel plaza. You're not making anybody happy when you're trying to make everybody happy, considering we had the input come from the public that they want a specifically designed skate park. But with that in mind, it's also very difficult as a commission to sit up here, as Mr. Morgan pointed out, and my thoughts are, without having the ability to look at results from the overall park plan survey and kind of take in, as an individual and thinking about the process, you're trying to take in what can go into the whole park system and what can go in here. So if I have the skating community that's skateboards and inline skaters that can kind of use the same materials, would they prefer the opportunity to design a separate standalone skate park that would be, say, next to the bowl that's at Santana Park, that could sit next to it and that dirt area could be filled in? If they designed all that and it was specific to them, would they be happy that this plaza was an all-skate plaza? Do you see what I'm saying? It's very difficult to come through on these individual amenities. So I'm refraining from all of that, but I appreciate that you are explaining that we will have the opportunity to debate this. And that's where, as a commission, I hope that we're able to address those concerns, because those are the conversations I'd like to have. I'd like to, I would have liked the opportunity as well to kind of sit and go through these survey results, maybe even in a separate meeting ahead of the one that we're having right now, just as an opportunity as a commission to digest what those results were, what they translate into, and take a moment to really be able to think about that. And then maybe even see that presented next to what the all city park plan surveys were that were coming in, so that we can get just a general idea of how this is going and what people are saying with their needs. I think it's a lot to ask of the commission to come in cold and you see the presentation and you've got to absorb it all at once. So as a commissioner, I'm kind of asking, I guess, if you are up for it, Chair, I'm kind of putting on your plate, you know, an additional meeting or two to kind of bring us along more gently, you know, into the fold. But with that, I kind of just want to wrap up and just say that I understand the big ask. And the big ask is to go all in, not just some grass and a new pool. So for that, I lend my support to this, and I appreciate your hard work, so thank you. And that concludes my comments.
Commissioner Kinney?
So this was presented to us as a receive and file. I'm not really sure what to make of that. But I do have some comments, so I'm just going to take the liberty to speak them. I don't disagree with Mr. Morgan back there about the already existing spaces, and I'm fiscally conservative in my leadings, and so all I see is a lot of big dollar signs. And I understand how exciting it can be, and I look at long-term maintenance, and it's such a big ask that I feel like I need more information. The one thing, I know this is just kind of high-level conceptual stuff. I'm really disappointed that the picnic and pavilion space is not going to be included. I think that there's a community of people that really rely on that, and that's part of their on their daily lives for parties and family gatherings, and it was ranked so high. This park is either going to be engaged and it's going to deter the type of behavior that an abandoned park with pavilions might see, or it's not. I mean, if we're going to spend, millions and millions and millions of dollars and we can't have a shaded picnic space when that's one of the highest ranked things, I just that really confuses me. And then I think that we have to be kind of aware of what cross traffic is going to look like. You put two skate parks or pavilions or wheelie bobs, wherever you want to call them, on two different sides of the park, there's going to be a lot of zipping back and forth. I raise boys. They're going to go, let's go over to that one, let's go over to that one. And so you're going to have people caught, and you're right next to the splash pad where little kids are going to be. And I think there's things like that, kind of what Commissioner Wentworth had kind of alluded to. We haven't really had much of our input, and I'm a little disappointed in that, and I would hope that we could see more. I'd like to be, if we're a stakeholder, we're a stakeholder. Stakeholders aren't asked to just file away a report, in my opinion, and so I would look forward to and be willing to participate in a workshop type thing or additional meetings as well. Thank you.
Vice Chair?
I can certainly appreciate the comments from my fellow commissioners, and I thank Mr. Morgan for his comments too. One of the things that struck me before I heard that comment was, are we overly programming this park, right? One of the things that this park is super unique in is it's big and it's flat. We don't have much of that in this town, right? We got Santana, it's big, but it's not flat. We got other parks that are big and they're not flat. This is big and it's flat. I think back to, when I was raising my now teenagers, we'd put the bikes on the back of the car, drive down to Imperial Highway, and bicycle through Yorba Regional Park. Right? We didn't really have a place to do that here that's big and flat. I don't know if this kind of speaks to that, or the trails kind of have that sort of thing in mind, or if it's kind of pedestrian oriented. But it just kind of, not that specific activity needs to be supported, but it kind of got me thinking that what do we want the park to be? Do we want it to be a hub of activity, or do we want it to be a place of respite, right? A place to kind of go and, in Yorba Regional Park, there's folks taking their Christmas pictures there every fall, and it's pretty, lots of trees and kind of meadows, and it's a place to kind of get away from a ton of activity. So I can appreciate wanting to check all the boxes, right? Everyone wants the stuff, and I certainly have my preferences, but I do appreciate that this is based on community input, and that's what matters. But I do want to take a good hard look to Commissioner Wentworth's point. If it's tries to be everything, the Swiss Army knife to everything, then it's really not great at anything, right? Like, are we going to have one soccer field to attract a game? That's what works at Santana Park, is that they can hold a tournament. It's a bunch of fields. It kind of works there. So, I think maybe go big on the things that we really want to go big on, right? The things we really want to be known for, the things that are going to attract the entire community from points and even from adjacent communities. That's a great park, right? Something that's going to draw people in like that. But I do appreciate the process, and it is difficult. It's very difficult to keep everyone happy. And thank you. That's my comments.
Thank you, Vice Chair. As I listen tonight to my commissioner friends, I'm hearing one thing is that we need to have additional meetings, and that would make it, I think, probably seamless as far as being a stakeholder and being considered a stakeholder, as Commissioner Kinney talked about. But I concur with everything they've all said, and it could be a Saturday 4-hour session where we get together and meet and talk and share some thoughts and read the survey, look through the survey, munch on a survey and digest it, and then come out of that comes some solid feedback from people who have I've heard concerns and desires and wishes for this park, which will be a major park in the region. And so with that said, I want to commend Mr. Cortez for the outreach you did do. I was there at one meeting, and it was fantastic. People just kind of floated to you. And this, you're a good speaker. I commend you very well for that. You're like a magnet. People are attracted to your thoughts and desires. And I heard you say you grew up here in town too, and then part of the activities in parks. So I'd like to hear your thoughts and wishes for a park. And I know you have kids of your own. What do they want to do? So Justin, very good presentation. Although one thought was that the middle part of that conversation kind of lost me on that video. And I mean, it's like a party that didn't happen. But that's not mean. It needs to be probably left out or added to that. And maybe it can happen on a Saturday. We get together and toss around some ideas. But I think for the most part, there was a lot of things have been said and talked about and alluded to. But I believe we need to have another meeting where we express our thoughts and desires. And again, I expressed before that we are a team, and a team works well together and needs to work fluidly with that. And I mentioned before, we're also a family. A family doesn't agree every time things are said. But I think this park's gonna be here forever. It's been here over close to 100 years. And knowing that and believing in that, I think more time needs to be spent on things that we need to happen. And I concur with Mr. Olson too, Vice Chair Olson, about the design with nothing at all is a design, and how that envelops and secures all the different amenities in the park site, make it a better design. So I think we need to kind of share those thoughts with non-equipped areas, non-designed areas that become part of the open space. And nothing wrong with the botanical garden if it's meant well with and tied together with a community building or a senior center too also. So anyway, thank you so much.
Chair Munoz, may I just say that on behalf of our staff, I want to thank the commission for your thoughtful feedback on this presentation. It's really helpful for us. I think one of the things that is really important to express is where we are in the process. We are still conceiving, right? We had to come with something, right? So we could at least begin the conversation, because if we're not all looking now, okay, there we go. But if we're not all looking at something, we can't begin to have the conversation. There was no expectation on our part that this was going to be like a knife through butter. We had no expectation that we were going to bring this forward and that everyone was going to be like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. What we want the commission to understand is that we are looking to make one of the most significant park investments that this city will probably make in 50 years, if not ever. This is an entirely redone, going down to a blank slate and redoing a park. And there's very few opportunities that communities have to do this. We want to do it right. We respect very much that you want more information and more meetings, and we will make that happen. We will work with our overall, the timing on this gets really tricky for us. We have 3 master plans that we have to deliver within 3 months. And so we're kind of going in all directions. So we're trails, we're Parks and Recreation Master Plan, we're City Park Master Plan. So getting the data from the overall Parks and Recreation Master Plan to jive with the data of City Park. We're a little bit off on timing, but we will work to get that for you so you can understand. I'm hearing you that from a programming standpoint, you want to understand what the needs are. And I get that. I get that. We can tell you, and I can tell you with confidence tonight, that we are underserving for sure our senior community. Not because we don't have wonderful programs, but because we don't have a purposely built facility for seniors. And so when something gets big and fabulous at the senior center, we move it to the Circle City Center so that line dancing can actually occur in a space where 50 or so participants can do it at the same time, which is not possible at this fire station that's been repurposed as a senior center. To have congregate meals, to have a catering kitchen that can really do that so that we can get the meals, we can prep the meals, we can plate the meals, we can get it out to folks, and then we can get that, cleaned up and sanitized and handled properly. We don't have a facility that has that kind of thing. Those are all very weedy kind of things that we'll get into with design, that we will work hand in hand with recreation, because we'll have to build. You can't just have people floating into an aquatics area, right? I mean, there's going to have to be somewhere there that greets them and handles the flow. And I think what you said, Commissioner Kinney, is absolutely right. We've talked very generally about making sure that we're very intentional as we talk about the parameters with which we are going to design this park, to make sure that we don't have conflicts in pedestrian and vehicular, either, skateboards, bikes, traffic. We want to make sure that that's very thoughtful. We also want to draw people into the park from the street. So we've thought very clearly about having a very intentional, welcome to City Park kind of thing. I mean, you're walking into, I don't either. But you're walking into the park, you're walking into it, you're coming through it, you are being drawn into the park space. We want to create a space where community is created in Corona, where many different people with many different interests, all, as Mr. Morgan well put, feel welcome and feel that there's a space and a place for them to engage. And that's the ideal thing. So I just want to say that we hear you. Your feedback was very important to us. Receive and file for us is discussion and getting your feedback. And we will make sure that we have some more meetings where we can help you integrate the information from both of the plans. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is number 10, Parks and Trails update from Mr. Cortez. You are a busy guy, aren't you?
A lot of fun things going on.
Thank you.
That's all good stuff.
That is.
So we're actually going to go over a few updates from our Parks and Trails division. So I'm joined tonight by my park planner, Caroline Bustos, and Brett Dawson, our trails planner. Gary Garcia, who's under our Parks division, unfortunately is sick tonight, so I'll be presenting some of the things I've been working with him on. So with that, I'll jump into the presentation, and I'm going to let Caroline get started with that.
Thank you, Moses. Good evening, Chair Munoz, member of the commission, and Dr. Turner. My name is Caroline Bustos, Park Planner. This evening, I will share an update on the progress of the Park and Recreation Master Plan. I am thrilled to share that the Park and Recreation Master Plan is currently in Phase 3. In Phase 3, we are working with our consultant, MIG, with reviewing all the data collected from our outreach efforts. Our outreach efforts included surveying in both English and Spanish, creating a robust marketing campaign, adding leaves to all of our parks with scannable QR codes, and furthermore, creating a presence at city events with all aimed at engaging the community to share feedback and recommendations that will shape the future of parks and recreation in Corona. MIG and the Community Services Department embarked on this journey with the mission to provide an equitable plan that is community-driven and supported by the residents of Corona. We are excited to share that we will deliver the master plan in early fall of 2023. The benefits will provide the following, to name a few. consistency in decision-making in regards to parks and recreation programs, funding for park maintenance and development, the ability to make informed decisions for outdoor spaces, and preserving the community's charm of Corona. The intention of the master plan will be a guide for the city to follow for future generations. So some of the photos we have here are from our different workshops that we've hosted here. One is with the staff, and then one is with, of course, the commission. And then our community engagement efforts as well. So we had the My Wish campaign, the QR code leaf campaign. If you haven't seen it or scanned it, please do so. And then the Halloween or Hallow Weekend event. With that, that concludes my portion of tonight's update on the Park and Recreation Master Plan presentation. I will now turn over the presentation to Moses Cortez.
Thank you, Caroline. Just want to go over a few maintenance items that we've been working on in our parks. So we've been standardizing our park restrooms. We've gone through and we've had our staff out there painting all of our restrooms, both the walls and the floors. And what's been really nice, and I'll show some pictures here in a moment, is we're doing all our parks. We started with a lot of our sports parks. They're heavily used on the weekend. And by doing this, it's allowed our graffiti contractor. They do come in every Friday. So every Friday they visit all of our sports parks. That's their number one priority. We have one crew doing that. So that way, before the leagues show up on Saturday, obviously they're heavily used on the weekends. We want the bathrooms to be clean and free of graffiti, especially for parents bringing in their children. We don't want any like vulgar graffiti or anything bad to look in there. So by standardizing these colors, it's allowed our graffiti contractor to just keep one color for the floor and one for the wall. It's been really efficient, actually makes it really clean. We've used like a semi-gloss type paint, so if it's like a marker, we can just wipe it off. And I'm actually gonna show a couple of these pictures because they came out really good. So you can see the floors in epoxy coated gray, and the walls are just like a Swiss coffee, kind of off-white. There's another picture here in a moment. Maybe. There we go. So you can see the floors have that really nice sheen. It actually makes it nice for our janitorial companies too, because they do come clean every morning. They're able to just hose everything down. It goes down the floor drain, and then we just squeegee the floors dry. Again, this is kind of this will be incorporated into our Parks and Recreation Master Plan as what our standards will be. So all of our bathrooms will be matching colors, the partitions, the gates, the floors, the walls, everything will be one standardized way to do it, and that'll actually help us save on some costs because we'll only be utilizing those certain paint colors. Another fun item we've been working on is our field maintenance standards. We did bring this before City Council at the fall workshop to get to do some field maintenance standards. So we have our passive play fields, which do receive the annual field renovations of us coming in and fertilizing, doing some aeration and some seeding. And now we're going to be doing some pilot work at 3 of our parks. So we'll be doing Santana, Butterfield, and El Cerrito. And we'll actually be doing a more involved renovation that includes some heavy sanding to really remove all those undulations and just have a very nice flat play surface. We're hoping that this will allow some of our leagues to be able to host tournaments and not have to go elsewhere to other cities to, sometimes they have to go to other cities to host, to play a tournament. And now we're hoping that those leagues will be able to utilize these fields to actually them host the tournament and bring a draw to the city. So that way, people might be, obviously be buying food when they're here. They can go, might be, if it's a multi-day tournament, they potentially will be staying, in a hotel. So generate some from revenue for the city. And we picked these parks to start off with just because we felt they have the infrastructure and it'll apply to not just one sports group, but applies to multiple. So you can host at Santana, you obviously have soccer and baseball. El Cerrito, you have soccer and baseball. Butterfield, you have softball. So we felt like, okay, we're kind of trying to spread it across and they can accommodate the parking. So we're really excited to get underway on these renovations. I've been working with my team on getting that scope of work set up so we can get out there and start this work. Our fields are going to look really amazing. I'm super excited about it. It's going to look really cool. So very excited about that one. That one kind of gets my blood flowing. And there's some pictures here. You can kind of see we got, we're out there cutting the arcs, leveling off the lip where, from getting the fields drug, doing some slit seating, some verticutting, aeration. I kind of geek out on this stuff. So it is super fun, but the fields are going to look amazing. So really excited to be able to work with the team to get this work done. With that, I will turn it over to Brett Dawson to go over some of our trails updates.
Greetings, Commissioners. I'm the Trails Planner. This is an update to the Trails Master Plan. We are currently within Phase 2 of the master plan, where we are refining the plan and prioritizing future projects. We have created a Trails Working Group compiled of volunteers of varying trails enthusiasts. We have held 5 meetings with the Trails Working Group. The Trails Working Group has indicated interest in focusing on more access to the Cleveland National Forest, whereby we have determined that our first priority will be 4 access points and the Santa Ana River Trail. Those 4 access points will be Fresno, Skyline Hagador, Eagle Glen, and Bedford Mortaway, and the Santa Ana River Trail. We have conducted an extensive outreach online and in person at the Hagador Trail cleanup event. We have established a list of 5 standard trail amenities for every trail. These consist of a water fountain, a bench, trash can, signage kiosks, and a bike station. The plan is in draft phase, and we are working with a consultant on refining a public-facing draft, and will work with the Trails Working Group to further refine it in the months to come. Thank you, and that concludes my presentation.
And that concludes the presentation for the parks updates. Myself and my team would be available if there are any questions.
Thank you so much. I want to say before I pass it on, great presentation. Commissioner Wentworth? Oh, before, I'm sorry. I'm out of line. Ms. Vargas, are there any speaker cards from the public?
No, Chair, there are no speaker cards.
Okay. Are there any written comments from the public?
No written comments, Chair.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
It's okay. 99% of the time when I was chair, I forgot to ask that last question. So I always figure if there's speaker cards, I always bring them to you so you know, and then I would forget to say, hey, are there any? Because you kind of know if there are. But that's a great presentation, trying to focus the commission back in and bring us up to date on where you are with the planning on our 2 extra plans here. I do want to say a couple of kudos here on the standardized park restroom issue. I mean, I think Moses and I go way back on restroom issues with parks, like 10 years back. And this seems so common and basic common sense, what you've adopted and you're doing here, and it's taken a long time to get to this point. But I am just relieved that we're here. I mean, it's fantastic. And I don't know if the other commissioners can appreciate that, but going in and out of park restrooms with kids 10 years ago, graffiti was main place. Just the inability to do more than just keep it basic clean was the problem. They would be basic clean, but then we couldn't get a hold on all the other things going on in those bathrooms. And so this looks fantastic. You are to be commended. I am extremely relieved that the city has put some funding behind this and really move forward. This is actually a huge deal. Whether the council knows it or not, it is absolutely a huge deal. So I commend you for doing that. I'm glad that you're updating us on that and keep it up. So I appreciate that. And you know that I do, because, man, I've got some old pictures on my phone that would set your hair on fire, which is why you don't have any more hair, right? Yeah. And then the second component as well, on the field maintenance, just another sore spot where we've had a continuous outpouring from the public and the leagues about the field standards and how we've been able to maintain our fields. And again, I want to say that with the council putting some money behind the ability for the staff to take better care of the fields and to work with the leagues and the public to bring them to a standard that everyone can understand this is where they need to be. We're not going to have Major League Baseball quality fields, but we need to get them to the point where you can have a tournament. You're right. And as a commissioner coming forward in the state of disrepair that the fields were in prior to, after the 2008 downturn and the budget cuts and everything, the field standards just went down and down. As a commissioner and a volunteer for the city, I came forward on many occasions attacking the field maintenance issues. And it is just a pleasure to see a different strategy and some money and support to get us there. So I think this will make all the difference in the world. I think hopefully we have leagues and parents and community members coming forward and letting you know that our fields are on par with other cities that they go to. Because I was one to come and forward and tell you that I couldn't find a city that we were really on par with. We were really below standard. So we have made such great strides, and this is just phenomenal. I just really like looking at this, and I think that hopefully the community will be pleased with the progress. It can't be done in days, it's done over years, and we can appreciate that, but I like kind of highlighting how far we've come, because I was the parent with the kid tripping in all those holes, you know? And to the fact that we're able to address it, to me, is just a huge milestone, and it really hits home, because this is a big thing. Sports fields in Corona are a big thing. They're a huge draw. They could be an economic draw. There could be an economic fallout from it, but we don't make use of that because we haven't been hosting baseball and soccer tournaments on the regular. So this would be a great turn of events. So those are my comments on those two sections. And I'll move on to the Trails Master Plan. I have to say I'm a little disappointed that I don't see the Butterfield Overland Trail on here, considering the recent press that it's been getting and the community push through the county and the federal level for this trail, that this isn't being brought forward with some more updates to the commission. You know, at this point, Butterfield Overland Trail through Corona, and my understanding in following this along, I mean, we've built over a lot of the trails, so it becomes a lot of signage, connecting bike lane paths so that people know, you know, we have I know in my head, and I can see the map in my head where this trail goes. Like, I know, and I know the offshoot to Bedford, and I'm disappointed to see that it's not on here, so I'm hoping that the working group and you will come back with a little bit more information for us. I think it's important that we recognize this trail. There's a reason so many things around here are named Butterfield, and so that would be great to have. I think I would like also maybe a little more details from the Trails Working Group, because my understanding on the trails planning, I'm at a higher, I know I'm soaring above on a higher level plane looking at it, but I'm kind of looking at, I'd like to see where you're at in the bike lane connectivity, in the walking path connectivity planning. I'd like to be brought along, I guess, with some of those details and where they see some improvements that can be made and where we're identifying those layers to the trail master plan. I think we're all familiar with hiking our foothills, and the purpose of the plan is to help protect trails that really can be developed on with housing and commercial development. And if you don't have a plan in place, and you can just build right on top of the trails and everybody goes, what happened here? As we've done in the past, right? So we're getting beyond that concept, but I think as a commission, maybe we could fold this into, if we are having more information given to us on the process on the Parks Master Plan and the City Park Master Plan, where we get a chance to digest our survey results and maybe digest a little bit, maybe that can be thrown in there, because I think that's kind of what I'm looking for as well.
Yeah, we didn't name the Butterfield Overland Trail here because primarily as we work with the county and as we're talking with folks, it's a signage campaign in Corona mostly. The Trails Working Group, we're happy to give you a report out on the many meetings that we've had with them, and primarily that group, as you mentioned, and as Mr. Dawson mentioned, has been primarily focusing on gaining greater access to the Cleveland National Forest. That's been their primary focus. When we look at connectivity and some of the circuit paths that we brought in the first Trails Master Plan, all of that's going to be well embedded into this second phase. This second phase is really focusing on trailhead standards, what you can expect at a trail in Corona so that we have a standard look and feel. What you can expect about planning trips. One of the components that is not a part of the Trails Working Group but is part of the Trails Master Plan is the ability to sit at home and say, hey, I'd like to hike in Corona. This is what I'd like to do. And it shows you not only how to plan your trip to Corona, but how to do that on the train, that rails to trails connection, so that you can plan a day of how you could take the Metrolink in, take your bike and come out. Our Public Works Department is also doing a full bicycle lane and bike path kind of plan that we're going to hope to weave in and dovetail with. But we haven't spent an inordinate amount of time in this phase of the Trails Master Plan on that internal circuit urban kind of connection, which we did in the first phase of the master plan that was almost exclusively that sort of inner city trail connectivity, parks to trails, parks to bike paths to trails. We will have some components of that in the appendices, but we'll also draw you back to that first phase of the Trails Master Plan. I think what I'm hearing tonight overall from the commission is the desire to go deeper on where we are on all of the plans. And I think that we are happy as staff to accommodate that. We have been working at a breakneck pace on all of these plans, and we have been trying to sort of keep you updated, but I think it's clear that, you know, spending some very intentional time together and going through these in depth and being able to answer your questions is going to be really critical before we start, you know, showing you drafts and kind of getting you ready before they head to the council.
Thank you. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Kinney?
Thank you for responding to Commissioner Wentworth's comments. They do reflect some of my own concerns. For those that might not know, I've been living and breathing trails and trails planning for the last 15 years, and a long history with the Skyline Trails. Go back and look at the 2007 Board of Supervisors meetings, and you'll see before it was even became part of the city of Corona that I was there. The trails really lack, for me, opportunities for a larger group of people. I mean, these trails, I love them, all of these trails. They're for people that are fit generally and want to go mountain biking or hiking. It's not, you know, I went to, on Saturday, the mayor had a community meeting, and there were people in that district that said they just wanted, you know, pretty places to walk their dogs, and they were senior citizens, and that really is not being addressed. We're taking 4 out of the 5 priorities and putting them in all one area of the city and ignoring the rest of the city and the rest of the users. And then they're not even all in the city, within the city limits. And so I just kind of struggle. I don't understand. You've had 5 meetings. I don't know what priorities mean. Like, I don't even know. It's hard to, priority for Skyline. It already has the amenities that we are talking about, except maybe, I don't think it has a drinking fountain. So is it a priority to bring, it's really, really vague. And then just to touch in on Butterfield, in 2009, then President Obama authorized the study of the Butterfield Trail, and it's a 1,200-mile trail from St. Louis, Missouri to San Francisco, and a team working with the National Park Service, which I still am. I was a member of that team. We still correspond to this day. We had an alignment set in the county of Riverside, and Corona, the city of Corona, had representation on that working group as well. And they decided where their alignment was going to be. And that was presented, it was compiled, it was presented to Congress several years later. In December of this past year, it was actually bipartisan support. It was approved and designated as a historic trail and signed into law by President Biden on December 22nd of this past year. And so it's not just, it's significant. It's a significant trail. And although it is predominantly a sign campaign, it's not exactly just that as well. And so I don't know what the direction of this group is going to go. I suspect that the people that are in this group are all really excited about having access to the Cleveland National Forest. That doesn't represent the city of this size, you know, it doesn't represent large portions of the population. Santa Ana River Trail, it's a no-brainer. They've been working on it for 40 years, I guess. That'd be great to get some of that stuff done. So I look at this and the riches are all going into one place with one user group. And I have concerns about that. Thank you.
Again, Commissioner Kinney, absolutely what I think we were trying to do here tonight was to share with you what we were hearing out of the Trails Working Group. That's not the only stakeholder group that we're working with. I think we're trying to create policies overall for access to walking and paths. I really also want to make sure that when we dive a little deeper, that we go through the Trails Master Plan, our primary document, which talks very specifically about circuit trails in the city, places to walk your dog, you know, maybe using split rail fence to move pedestrians away from vehicular traffic, to create trails in different places in the city. Again, what I think you'll find throughout all of our master plans is the desire for equity throughout the whole city. We realize that the foothills are sourced all in South Corona. That's not what we are trying to do. This is the second layer of an overall plan that started with the first Trails Master Plan. And this plan is really talking about how do we access that foothill area. I think that we will bring more to you. This was just a very light overview about what has been talked about at those 5 meetings. We've had interjurisdictional meetings. So we've met with flood control. We've met with the U.S. Forest Service. We've met with Riverside County Parks and Recreation. We're trying to see how we partner with other agencies to expand the city's concept of walking and being active and being a part of that piece of getting people outside, walking their dogs, hiking, biking, all of those things. And we want to ensure that there's access for everyone to be active in Corona.
All right. Vice Chair?
Great comments tonight. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. Always good to get an update on what's going on. I want to echo Commissioner Wentworth's kudos on the bathrooms. I take my kids to the parks on the weekends pretty frequently, except when it's raining, which is like every weekend lately. And invariably, we got to use the bathroom, right? It's just kind of part and parcel with that. And I'm like impressed. I was like, this shouldn't look this good. And they do. So keep up the good work. It is really, really important and something that hasn't been really done well in the past. On the subject of the turf, I don't really know what the long-term outlook is. Like, when would we expect it to be like done? What's a finished condition there, and kind of where are we at now? And if I went out there today, what should I expect to see?
So right now you'll see a lot of our fields in kind of like what we're calling like our passive use. I mean, they do look a lot better than they used to. We've come a long way since then. But what you're going to start to see probably over the next 12 to 18 months as we really start to, start doing, I mean, some of it we do after time and some of it's seasonal, like we'll do a broadleaf treatment at certain times of the year. When you get, in spring, you're going to see a lot of broadleaf or summer. In winter, a lot of our turf goes dormant, so, we'll come in and do some overseeding with perennial rye. So it's kind of like a phased approach, but over the next 12, 18 months, you should really start to see some drastic improvements in the fields, as well as the ball fields. You're going to start to see. We've already started some of that process at Mountain Gate, Santana, and we're as soon as the rain stops, we're going to try and get out to Butterfield. But going out there and laser grading them, adding the clay, checking the base pegs, making sure that everything's aligned, checking the home plate, doing the batter boxes. So you'll start to really see kind of an overall holistic approach to all the fields.
Okay. Down at Butterfield, there's also a dog park, and I don't know if this is within scope or something totally separate, but obviously I've heard concerns about that particular patch of grass in the past being muddy and whatnot. Is that something that's also being addressed as a part of this, or?
So I actually met with our team out there, and we're looking at it kind of like as a separate project because it won't be part of the sports field, but there's some things we're looking at with the way that we irrigate and some of the turf that's in there. We've got some trees that have some pretty exposed roots and provide a lot of shade there, so kind of always battling that, but we're looking at some workarounds to see if we can have some turf in there, maybe some DG, some areas that'll kind of free up that area so it's not so muddy.
Cool, awesome. And just a question, Bedford, Is that in Corona? Can you kind of walk me through that?
The Bedford motorway is actually outside the city's jurisdiction, but the Trails Working Group has brought that forward, that they would like access to that area. Right now, there's some landlocked issues. So that's something that we've been working with some of our surrounding jurisdictions with the U.S. Forest Service, particularly on seeing what we could provide to them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. On my part, restroom facilities updates. Back in the 90s, I was doing ADA accessibility on all the restrooms in about 10 different cities here in LA County, Orange County, and I saw the worst. And so to see then that in my memory banks is haunting. What you have today is a major change, so kudos to you on that. I agree with Commissioner Wentworth, too. 90s, wow, bad year, bad decade. And then field maintenance, it's 24/7. You know, you kind of play, at one time you probably played catch up, but now you're there and then making do with what we have. But it's 24/7. You see kids playing all the time, you know. And then on weekends at Santana Park about 2 months ago, I mentioned this last month, walking our dog, and then the fence was down just a little bit, but it was already filled with people wanting to play soccer. And the sign says, closed, closed for reseeding, but they're playing, so it's 24/7. So my heart goes out to you and your crews for trying to maintain some quality fields, but we're doing it. Thank you. On the Trails Master Plan, again, I go back to my scouting days and these young men that were here today, and we're all hikers, but there's different levels of hiking that you touched upon, from the very beginner who needs to be taught how to hike correctly on a trail that may be too steep for that person, you know, to a person who's been there and done that. I know when I went to Philmont, New Mexico, back in the 2000 time period with 8 young men and 4 adults, and we went on hiking, and we went 50 miles on trails that were really, really nicely pristine hiking trails. Had a blast. You're eating food that you cook on there on the trail, and story back. I hate macaroni and cheese, but we ate macaroni and cheese too many times. But it's a whole new story. But I think we're doing very well for what we're doing. And I heard 3 phrases tonight: a light overview, being drawn in. I think the master plan talks about that. I think we'd like to be drawn into more information on how that's being explored and tossing in our 2 cents worth. Again, hearing it, digesting it, and providing some good feedback. The person to my right here has been around the world on trails for years, and we need to take advantage of that situation. And anyway, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. At this point in time, if nothing else to be talked about with that, we have our commission members' reports and comments. Commissioner Wentworth?
Thank you. Well, I just want to take this opportunity to really thank the staff for listening to the commission as we try to thoughtfully reflect on the community's desires and needs. And we are sensitive to finding our way to meeting those needs through our planning process with these plans. And I think that is the sentiment that all of us operate on, is that we're trying to do the best that we can, and we're trying to gather as much information as we can and meet those needs. So I commend you for listening to us and coming back. And just to touch back on Mr. Cortez's reports and the staff's reports that come forward as we're reflecting on them. I know I kind of bring a historic reference, but it means a lot to me that these things had come forward so many times, and that we've finally gotten to the place where we can do something about them, where those concerns were listened to, and then something was done about them. So I just really can't thank you enough, and at least recognize that. And again, even with, as we talked about the survey process, I can't fully express how upsetting it is to sit up here and sit in a process that was not valid when we had done a past survey, and then try to move forward from something that you know doesn't reflect fully the community's needs. And to see the city invest in, proper consultation and proper staff to pull together this information is actually just huge. That's why I'm bringing it up again in my comments, because I want everyone to kind of feel at least some comfort in knowing that we're not moving off an invalid poll here. We're diving as deep as we can get as a government can do for the responses that we've got, and then some. So I think that's just something that we just need to acknowledge, and I just had to bring it up again. I don't have too much to say as far as the comments. I just wanted to see if at the next meeting that maybe we could, if there's any issues that came up with the parks that's like rain-related, if you would let us know. I know I brought up Mangular in the director's report because it's kind of, you can come back to that, but that was also a thing. I know I was over at Border Park on Monday, and the paint surfacing and everything is cracking. There's a visible difference in the surfacing just with this much rain and how much water's been sitting on it. And when I was there Monday, I was thinking, gosh, I wonder if we've lost a lot of trees or kind of how that's going. So if there's been issues, if you would bring it back. If not, then that's great too, good to know. And I want to say that, with the Tin Mine and Haggador trail cleanup that I participated in last month, having hiked those trails, I don't want to say how many times, it's kind of embarrassing, but it's a lot, between now and the last cleanup, that's holding, and that was a great cleanup effort. So people are really respecting the trails, even though we've had a lot of weather. There's a lot of people back there to see the weather, and there's not as much graffiti and trash. I think we've made a lot of headway, and I came out of there knowing there's a lot of usage, and I don't feel like we need to have another cleanup. So I think that's really to be commended. So, and that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kinney?
I don't have any comments for tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner and Vice Chair Olson?
Always well said by Commissioner Wentworth, per usual. Thank you. I too appreciate everything that's being done here, and the effort to educate, a guy like me, right? You got to speak slowly and talk through it a couple times, but I'll get there. But being here for a little over a year now, I think that I'm kind of starting to kind of get it, and it takes a while, right? So I appreciate all of the efforts and would absolutely welcome additional educational opportunities to understand the process and see where we're at, and offer feedback along the way as well. So other than that, I will see you Saturday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. On my part, I wanted to thank Commissioner Veretti for being a part of a very invigorating panel last month for the celebration of Black History Month. It was fantastic. And we sat here, and it was amazing to hear the quality of people that were just speaking, and very engaging. It really just envelops your heart and soul, and to kind of sing out. So I want to share that. Hats off to Dominic, great guy. Also, again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be at the committee of the whole last month, actually March 1st. You learn a lot from those meetings, and I did too. We all always learn a lot about ourselves and other people and how you can grow from that experience. So, and March 18th again, we'll be there on Saturday. I heard about face painting, not a problem, like that. And ladders and linguine, I'm still full from too much linguine, but that's my fault, no one else's fault. Love to eat. And then in the future, I'd like to hear something about the blessing bags being at the city library. Kind of touched upon that during email, but it'd be nice to bring that to the next meeting and talk about that. It's a blessing in disguise, so let's talk about that. And then the other day I read about the blue zones, and I know that Justin has a lot of information to share with us, possibly, if you can share a few minutes of that, blue zones in Corona.
Thank you. We were approached by the county a couple months back to see if we would participate as one of 6 communities in Riverside County to undergo a community assessment for blue zones. And they're an organization that comes in and looks at active lifestyle, active living, and their whole idea is that there are places in the world where there are large proportions of people who reach 100 years old. And so what they try to do is go in and assess communities to see if they have projects they can work on that would increase the quality of life. So we've gone through that, we went through that assessment, and we'll await the report. But the Blue Zones team was actually really impressed with the work that we were doing in terms of community outreach, all the master plans that are going on. And I had a private meeting with them afterwards. We talked a little bit about the things that we're learning about our residents and all those activities. And I think that they were actually really shocked that a community was doing as much as we are to try and build community, to increase active living, and evaluate our transit system. We've done so many things inside of community services and also in public works with roadways improvements and stuff that they were just shocked at what we were doing. So I anticipate that their assessment will be that we're doing a whole lot more than many other communities. But we'll hear those results and I think it's in April.
Fantastic. It's nice to know that we're leading the way under your helm there, Doctor. And lastly, how are we going to celebrate spring in the next few months? Are we going to just sit back and just enjoy it? Are we going to do something about that? Well, it probably starts on March 18th, being out there and having our face painted and planting trees and all. But going back to Blue Zone real quickly, it's nice to know that we're out front there. But biking, hiking, and walking at a park site, that's what it's all about. Parks make life better. And my last thing tonight is that I went to a retirement party for a friend of mine from La Palma, Mike Belknap. Do you know him? He's been there. He's a director. He was a director until this month. He'll be retiring. But he's been there 37 years. So kudos to all those who stay in Parks and Recreation as directors and then lend themselves to what we do tonight. Anyway, thank you very much for that. Any announcements? None? Okay. On that note, I want to say it's been a wonderful night tonight, and I closed the meeting tonight at 8:02. Thank you.